That sense, my first question to all our panelists, probably I'll start with Ashan, and ask them the same thing in the first round. If Sri Lankan talent is a gift that you got, somebody presented you with a gift, and that is Sri Lankan talent. Ashan, as you unwrap it, what is the first thing that surprises you or worries you the most? If Sri Lankan talent was a gift, I give it to you, you take it, you open it up. As you open up the gift, what is the first thing that surprises you or worries you the most?
Well, I think seeing Sri Lankan talent, the depth of Sri Lankan talents is something that I have been fascinated with, having the opportunity to work across. I think I would say the depth of our talent is something that we should really treasure, and something I would be surprised to see in my package of talent, in my opinion.
So it's a good thing you're more surprised and less worried when it comes to unwrapping that gift. First round, let me get into Ashan for my first question. So Ashan, I want to ask you about the increasing influence of globalization in the world today, in the Sri Lankan market, in terms of employment. How have you seen approaches to redundancy and cultural transformation evolve across different markets? And in that case, what lessons could Sri Lankan talent draw from this to stay competitive when you look at the whole globe in a perspective?
Thank you. Actually, it's a good question, and a timely one as well. I think when I was working overseas, I had the privilege to recruit nearly about 300 Sri Lankans in different businesses and different organizations. So in doing that, something I saw is in Sri Lanka in particularly, redundancy comes faster than we ever anticipated because of, I think, AI, automation of processes, because most of the organizations no longer hire positions. They hire skills. So they wanted to see whether it's an individual, whether it's a system, or a bot that can do that job. When you look at from that angle, we are becoming a part of a process, whether we could be automated at times. While I agree, we had conversations around, it's more of an amplification tool. I'll give you an example. I mean, because I'm sure all these questions, if you put to ChatGPT, they'll give you a better answer than mine, but I'll try to bring in experience as much as possible that you would get something out of this conversation. I remember when we were in Malaysia, we wanted to recruit a person for digital. I think would have had multiple discussions with Asim, and we wanted to do for 16 different countries. Then we saw a setup in Africa funded by World Bank, and a complete infrastructure is free. They said, okay, fine. First 3 months your contract is free. If you like it, you can pay for our services. So as a person who's a developer or a person who's studying to become competitive in the market, you need to remember while as we call, it's a talent driven market, to all that, your competition can be someone who's offering services free out there. It's some of the organizations have still not looked out enough to be competitive. Because, I mean, like Hasim said, when we went overseas and started engaging with multiple platforms for to work, then we saw these kind of dimensions. This is really, what I'm trying to say is the redundancy comes if you really don't upgrade yourselves, particularly with AI. I remember I was in the washroom, there was an alert came in. Simply, we have a tool called Noti. I think most of you all are using it. During a meeting, we just on that. It gives you reminders what we agreed during the discussion. And most of the time, I don't look at it. It gives you notes and send notes into your calendar and reminders whenever that I'm supposed to complete it. And during a discussion, this reminder came in the morning while I was in the washroom. Then I quickly opened a tool, and I just mentioned what I want. The document is ready. And after 5 to 15 minutes on a platform like Napkin, your presentation is ready to run within about 1 hour. This work would have been done from at least 3 different people, secretary reminding me about the job, and somebody going through all the meeting notes and finding all these things. What we need to keep in mind is, while we know we are very demanding about our talent, redundancy can come if you don't update your skill set. Because no longer organizations hire for roles at a certain level, they hire for skills. If you are not ready and available with those skills, you will be redundant very fast to answer your question. And also, I'll bring in another example. We had an operation we started in Africa. It is a cocoa collection job, so I was told to recruit 50 people within about 2 weeks. So I was looking for talent who can do this. So it's a country who speaks French. Then I never thought in Sri Lanka we had, people that we have deployed through army as, UN peacekeepers in Africa who can speak French. So it was a market that I quickly, I recruited more than 50 people from Sri Lanka just for that operation. So the language and the skill of, being in those places were the opportunity that those people had. So what I'm trying to say is redundancy comes in a mean and form. I mean, while we talk about at a very top level of this discussion, not all organizations have these kind of impacts. Some of the organizations, I have joined an organization who's managed by an entrepreneur. A value system is completely different to a corporate, and we are going through a bigger transformation as we speak. So there are organizations who some of the skills may not even ever need in those organizations till you leave, so it's a lifetime employment. Yes, there are organizations like that. But as you climb up the ladder, as you come up to corporate, top-notch organizations, multinationals, as you complete, your redundancy could come in different form and shape. And talking about culture there, so I think the best experience we had was during COVID. We were pushed to work from home. We were given opportunity to lead from home. We were, pushed to be task-based, task-based driven people because in Sri Lanka, often your switch is on when you come and clock into your work. And, then, lunchtime again switch off, 5 o'clock we switch off. I mean, that's the culture we were used to for a long time. So during that period, the amount of effort that we all had to go through, work from home sessions, lead from home session, your JDs were revised, it became more task-based. But I was speaking to a lot of people now and, majority of them have gone back into their old days. And they're saying it was not productive. And they were giving all the reasons. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure there are different opinions around it. So what I'm trying to say is agility is something that is a necessity in any organization. And, the change is something that any organization should sustain if your organization to be competitive. Because particularly, this particular phrase I was told by my previous boss, I don't want people to count money. I want people to make money. So how much you are related to the cause of the organization. Some organizations have become so big and, some employees have gone so much far away from the original expectation of the cause of that organization. Sometimes you don't know what your customer is. You have never made a single rupee to the organization. So when I came back again through an example, what I want to share is I got the entire organization to go on Feet on the Street program and to sell all our products. So they came back with the most wonderful experience, understanding of how difficult to sell it, what are the challenges our product had. And, this is HR people, this is, admin people, this is, legal people coming back and saying, this is a challenge you have when you go promoting this SP balm or one of our products. So they were continuously talking about the practicality. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want, redundancy is coming faster than you expected with the technological changes that is coming, and that's a reality. And my suggestion is to stay close to the cause of the organization as much as possible and stay relevant. And also upgrade your skills would be something that you have to continuously do to be competitive in the market. And then, as an organization, be prepared to have agility, storytelling. The new skill set has to be embedded in your business for you to sustain, to run organizations and lead organizations. I hope I have answered your question.
Fantastic, Ashan. I think that was a lot of insight. You went straight into that deep dive, I would call it. You resonated with some of the things Chief Guest also mentioned. He said people these days didn't ask, in the most recent times, did not ask for increments in the appraisal. They asked for education. Connects a very straight dotted line to what you said. People need to upskill. AI is coming in and it is driving everybody a little uncomfortable. I discovered something very new called Google Notebook. I don't know how many of you have used it. Google Notebook. It's just unbelievable. upload a bunch of PDFs and go and create audio podcast, it would generate two people talking about all the PDFs that you put in there and giving you a 15 to 45 minute summary. It's like listening to a podcast. You can do it while you're driving or being transported somewhere. You get a full summary of what that documents are, even if it's 100 pages. And yesterday when I used it, I found out something even more interesting. There's an option called Join. So now what it looks like is a live radio program where you can also go in and ask a question. As they narrate the podcast, you can go in and ask a question and they will answer that question. Things have got really, really, really easy, like the noti thing you were talking about. They made it very, very simple. Life has become easy. And also, I think the most stunner of what you said is that remain close to the values and the purpose of the organization. Today, it's an HR gathering, but the truth that we've been hearing over the last 20, 30 years is HR personnel who are not connected with the business, who know nothing about the business, who do not understand how every nut and bolt of the business functions are going to be relevant. I think that is what, forget the fact whether you're Sri Lankan talent or not, if you are not up to speed with those, then you stand a real risk in the market. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else that is putting the nationality down or the individual down. Thank you so much, Ashan. Fantastic answer to what seemed like a normal question. I'm to Ashan with my second question. So Ashan, this is about a deeper one. I mean, you gave me a fantastic answer to your first question. This one is about the real truth. Everybody, let's be honest. Opportunities outside in the global market are more lucrative. Like Azim did mention, it gives you a whole fascinating world of exposure. Not necessarily do you have to even go and be there for years and years. I do stints at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is the Yas Marina circuit every year. I work there for about 30 days and that 30 days is a massive eye-opener on how people treat different nationalities, how the kind of work that they operate, the discipline that they bring into the whole system, and the speed of how things get done. Urgent in Sri Lanka could be very different in another country. The word urgent itself is very, very different. Special discipline, all those have different dimensions. At the backdrop of Azim saying something fantastic in his speech, it was a heartfelt speech, but for me, one line stands out. He says he's willing to send people overseas, and he used two other fantastic words. Not the ones who are desperate, but the ones who are disciplined. Later on, I'm going to ask him how he identifies discipline and desperation separately, but that's after the discussion. But now, given all that back setup that has gone into this session so far, Ashan, I want to ask you, when you look at Sri Lankan talent pool in a global context, where do you think we face the toughest challenges comparing to our neighboring markets? And also, what shifts should both organizations and individuals look at to bridge that gap? So, in raw English, Ashan, how good is our talent when you compare it with the overseas market? Are we bad? Are we good? If we are bad, what should we do to close that gap?
So I think I had the opportunity to recruit from Sri Lanka as well as from the neighboring countries. So if I break our recruitment into 3 tiers, we have hired leaders, we have hired managers and team. So hiring team was a very straightforward operation, where as a country, going beyond organization, what we lack is proper certification where it meets talent. For example, when we want to recruit people for Fiji and Papua Guinea for technical operating staff, good salaries, we would have hired at least about 30, 40 people. India, they came up with certifications and everything was ready to be accepted by the immigrations of Fiji to Papua New Guinea to all that, whereas in Sri Lanka we didn't know what certification is required, whether that certification is authentic, where do you get your certification validated. It was a struggle when we as an organization. So at a lower level, it is about having skill meet your proper certifications is something that as a country, I think organizations, I don't know how much it is geared to, but I know certain organizations do certifications for overseas stints. And they even had partnerships with us, even Sri Lankan companies, particularly on ship repair. They wanted to send their trained staff into our operations where they will do a stint for 2 years and come back. So for example, your person has been working with you all for 10 years, their salaries are so big, at a certain level, it goes beyond affordability level for your organization at times. This is a reality that we all need to understand unless you grow in your position to your next level. So our partnership was to bring them into Our organization, we pay them in dollars and we give them that exposure at a different level. They come back as supervisors. So they don't come for the same position when they come back. So that is at operation level, a few examples. So, and also different markets are having, because this is, I have worked with almost about 16 different country heads that I was working with. So country directors are saying, Philippines is good for customer service, or, go for accountants from Sri Lanka, or, they have different phrases, already defined for countries. Azim must be, he had to have heard more than that. So those perceptions in Sri Lanka, we are known, probably for our domestic, for a helper, but, as skilled labor, have we make a mark in the world talent pool? I seriously think we have a long way to go in that. So where, I will elaborate at the manager category, why. Now, as a recruiter, I remember when I was at Kiels before recruiting my staff for our collection center, I spent one full day there. And I expect all the HR people to do the same, because I believe for the position that I recruit, I want to feel what it is like. The following day, I couldn't come to work because, the work was that much, and, and the dollies that we were moving was not operating properly. So following day, I stopped recruitment. I spent one, full session with the operations head to fix all the issues that they have had. Because nowadays, as a recruiter, that's what we look at from the candidates in return. For example, when we were recruiting people for manager level, often they ended up explaining how great is their organization process. Because all what they have been doing in their life was, being a cogwheel in a process, delivering some of the KPIs. We as recruiters from overseas, we want talent who can make decisions. So Sri Lanka, at managerial level, lack decision-making leaders. Because you are driving a KPI, you are given a task to achieve, and you know nothing more than the KPI sometimes. The candidates we interview from Israel, South Africa, Australia, they would know what the market is like, they would know what the competition would look like, We are talking about, for example, a CFO. Some CFOs have not seen the factory, have not worked with the line managers, have not spent a day for good 5 years, because they have so many layers below them to go do their, legwork. So people who are disconnected from the core, overseas, we don't recruit because we don't want someone to, like I said, to count money. We want people who actually can make money for the organization. So I still remember we interviewed a person who's working in a Sri Lankan who had gone overseas that we interviewed. He was one of the fascinated candidate from all. Unfortunately, we couldn't afford him at the end. But the good thing about him was, since he has worked abroad, he came up with, he's a CFO. He was talking about the port challenges that they have encountered, the competition, the quality levels of their products, to all that. People like that we want in our arsenal to managing our money, because, he knows exactly what. And he gave us this fantastic example where, we ask about, okay, give us an example of a decision that you made during the past, few months. He said, I went into, we have a place where we take all the firewood for our operation, and always we get the best lowest rate. But when I visited, I asked, what is the consumption? I multiply, and he found, okay, fine, we buy 40 metric tons at a very good rate, but actually we use 20 metric tons. So CFO who's sitting in the office would have really seen, we are getting 40 metric tons at a fantastic price, but physically being in that location, because these are things that you cannot keep a measure on. But he realized by doing a simple math, they use only 20 metric ton a month. So they've been fooled by, for throughout. So that examples really open our eyes. So what I'm trying to say is, at a lower level, you need to have certification, proper, support from your country to do bulk recruitment for other places. But middle managers, don't be a cogwheel in organization. Because your answers sometimes is how good your process of the organization, and how much of KPIs that you all have achieved. We'd like to see the innovation of you, because you all are going to manage teams. You all are going to be, because I still remember, I don't know, I like to say this example because I myself have been a HR professional. When I was working in Malaysia, there was constant complaint that came in from our printing department saying, HR is getting so many complaints about, people fighting and issues like that. So my boss was next to me. He said, what would you do? I said, you should give a good hearing. And his answer was, why don't you remove HR and bring it to head office? So I was shocked by that answer. And so I know everyone else in this room is looking at me like that's the most adverse thing that you would ever do. But he said, someone who really have a genuine problem would come all the way to head office to complain about it. If they can't sort out their matters among themselves, this petty, basic level fundamental thing, HR is not going to be, policing you whether you treated them right or wrong. So the way I started looking at things working there was, quite different to, as a person being HR, I thought I was responsible to ensure that they don't fight. I would have been given the same answer as a candidate if that question were asked. And to be honest, once we moved that, of course, things were getting not complained because HR is no longer there. But at the same time, whether things have improved, survey just, would, give you over a period of time how it is. But as a business impact, he said, business is moving smoothly. I'm fine with that. Wrong answer from all HR means I understand. But as a business leader, sometimes when you go to an interview, when you've been asked questions, your answers doesn't need to be technically right. It has to be innovative, it has to be creative. And I think we discussed before also, innovation at middle management is skilled through processes. So if you're going for an interview, be prepared to answer innovatively. If you are to change your process, what would you do? Things like that to be prepared for your questions. Number two, having information is the king at interview. You need to know your organization, your stock market prices, your competitor, how they have been performing, market share, what changes have happened, the country information, at least a little bit about the country that you're planning to move. Those are very basic things that you need to be prepared when you come for interview, often that we don't see. As leaders, when we recruit at GM level, what we actually expected was mostly someone who can understand business end-to-end, and Sri Lanka came up with some really, really good candidates. But something that we saw predominantly is we are very nice people opposed to all the people we have interviewed. When we interviewed Australians, they are to the point, they sound like that they can run the business. But our GMs are very polite because they want to get through the interview or they want to be nice to the people that they are interviewed. I still remember our chairman, he said, can you show me what you are like when you are angry? He simply asked that question. At the end, he said, I'm not sure whether he can run the business. He's so nice. But I know this gentleman from Sri Lanka, he can be the toughest person when he wants. But at the interview, what I'm trying to say is we have certain cultural, politeness in our interviews sometimes doesn't work well for us, right? So what I'm trying to say at a GM level, like I said, we have so much depth in our talent. But, I heard saying we had a lot of literacy in terms of English, as a country, yes. But for some reason at the interviews, they don't sound like that. So you need to do at least a couple of interviews before you go in and ask from your wife, do I sound tough enough? Wife is the wrong person to check maybe. Do a couple of interviews would really help you to groom if you go for interviews overseas. Because what we would like to see is that the side that we wanted to run a business is one thing is toughness, particularly in the countries that we were recruiting, like Papua Guinea, Tonga, Fiji, those countries, you really need to be at it and, really need to big made people, how are you going to get the work done from them has to be shown to some extent at the interview. Of course, we visited here, we spent some time to understand them more. More we spend time with Sri Lankans, they become much more nicer. Have you tried our food? Why don't you come with me to visit my family? They become much more nicer, but we don't see that, toughness in our character. So that is the advice that I would like to say for the senior leadership level or the leadership level, managers. Like I said, prepare with information more. You need to be, hands-on. Don't come and explain the process of your organization. Be open to, show what can you do to the operation. And at the lower level, it is all about skill, meet qualification. That's all about ground level.
Thank you very much, Ashan.